Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In this episode, we interview Renée Jones, who spent 40 years on the diet yo-yo before she got free of emotional eating, which helped her not only lose a pounds, but maintain her goal weight since 2012. She redirected her practice to coach others to do the same. Join us as we delve into her story.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a break. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story. Today we have Renée Jones all the way from Texas in the USA, and I'm super excited to be interviewing Renée. Renée is the author of What's Really Eating You and has her own business called Pack Your Own Bag. So Renée, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to delve into this because this is something that I've struggled with all my life. So without telling our listeners too much, Renée, tell us a bit about you and how you went on this path or this journey. Take us right from the beginning.
Gosh. So I was on a diet for 40 years, and I'm not kidding. My first diet was when I was about 10 years old, and my mother was a little concerned about that, but she thought if we figure it out now, I'll have it for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, she wasn't very good at it, so I wasn't very good at it. So it was just that perpetual up and down, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20, 30, 40, up and down, for up until I was facing my 50th birthday. And I thought, things change for women at 50. If I don't sort it out now, I will never get this sorted out. So I started January of 2012, like a lot of people. I started a diet for New Year's. It was my resolution. And I did pretty well for about 10 days, fortnight maybe. And then I fell off. And I thought, no, you can do this. This is your time. You can do this. So I got back on it, and I had this conversation with myself about every other fortnight. And in April, I actually needed a bigger size. And I thought, seriously going the wrong direction here. So I got on the internet and was looking, and I discovered a term that I wasn't familiar with. And that was emotional eating. And I thought, oh, that's me. That's what I do. So I did some more research and I was looking for something and I ran across this do-it-yourself kind of course. And it was so good. I contacted the creator of the course and she became my coach. And the good news is we spent maybe 2 sessions talking about food. And then we started talking about all the other stuff. And the week before my 50th birthday, I hit my goal weight. And it's now 11 years later and my weight has not changed.
That's very interesting. And I find that to keep the weight off for 12 years, or no, it's even more now. Yeah, 12
No,
years.
11 years.
So to keep that weight off for 11 years, obviously what you're doing and what you're teaching is successful. How did that develop then into your own product? And what is the message of what you're doing?
My mantra when I was losing my weight was face your stuff. Don't stuff your face. Because I found that if I was keeping all of the emotional stuff in check, then I didn't need to stuff down my emotions and follow it with a food chaser. I wasn't trying to soothe myself. And if you don't need to soothe yourself, you don't need as much food. So it wasn't, oh, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm angry. Let me go get some whatever your food of choice is. And that saves us a lot of calories.
Wow. I love that. For instance, I can identify as an emotional eater. And I would say I think it's a lot of modeled behavior from childhood.
Mhm.
Modeled behavior also culturally being of an Italian family, first generation born in Australia, so parents born in Italy. So food plays a big part of our culture. However, Charlene's are totally opposite. When she's going through some emotion, she won't eat. She loses her appetite.
Mhm.
But how does one identify that it's actually the emotions that is triggering these behaviors?
Those are 2 types of people, right? Because there are people who just can't face food when they're upset or angry or whatever. Totally normal. We're all different. If when you are upset in whatever capacity, the first thing you want is something to put in your mouth, you're probably an emotional eater. And the thing is, this comes from birth because when we have a baby who cries, we tend to put something in their mouths, whether it's the bottle or the breast or a dummy or even your little pinky, right? To get them soothed. It's oral soothing. And it works beautifully because children do it. They keep their dummy until their parents take it away from them, right? And then they may go to sucking their thumb more or biting their nails. And as we get older, we change that for chewing on a pen or pizza or a donut. So it's a perfectly normal way of soothing. It does work until it doesn't work and it starts putting pounds on us. And we've got to find a different way to soothe ourselves.
That makes total sense. So, in your words, what is emotional eating? Is it just the soothing, or what is it exactly?
Eating for any reason other than hunger. Because think about holidays. We have holidays coming up, right? Or birthdays, or the summer barbecue, or whatever. We're with people, we're celebrating, we eat. I think I told you I lived in Wales for a few years and visited perpetually since then. And I was trying to sort out a gathering. And the people who were working with me said, so what are we going to put out for food? I said, do we need food? We're just going to be talking about this. We can give them a cup of tea. They'll be fine. I said, oh no, they won't come if there isn't food. And that's, in my culture, that's true. I would just hoped it wasn't true in theirs, right? We gather around food and we usually eat more at those times than we would, say, on a random Tuesday lunchtime. So we make food the focus so often, and it tends to make us overeat.
I'm wondering if it would make a difference, like if instead of gathering around food when we're emotional, to be able to just talk to each other about the emotions that we're feeling and discuss those, like it's allowing it to come out rather than chasing it down with something.
Yes. I mean, we want something to soothe us right now. And it works so well, we don't realize necessarily that's what we're doing. We just do it. For example, when my mother passed away, I nearly crawled into my peanut butter jar. Now, peanut butter, it's a perfectly lovely food. It can be healthy. Quantity is an issue. But it was soothing to me. And I didn't work that out until my grandmother, her mother, passed away because butter put her on an extra 20 pounds. And I didn't want to do that again. So I realized, this is such a connection for me to my grandmother. Soothing, loving, encouragement. And that's what I was putting all around that mishmash of peanuts, right? So once I realized she's not in that jar, I've got to find a different way to get this soothing and love and comfort. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It was like a bit of a light bulb moment for me. So basically, anything that connects us to the emotion that you felt with that person, you were trying to find that same connecting point through food that reminded you of that person.
Yes, but it's all unconscious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how if it's such an unconscious process, how do we catch ourselves in that act?
So peanut butter is fine, but I had to stop buying it for a bit so that it would not be something I could go to. So I think it's recognizing, this is what I'm doing. And in my TEDx talk, I actually take people through an exercise of recognizing, okay, what's the food that you go to? And it's usually tied to some emotional thing, good or bad. It's usually tied to some emotional thing. And if you can see, okay, this is what I'm doing with this particular food, then you just have to take an action that will break the cycle so that you can't go to it. So you'll recognize, I'm looking for this because I'm feeling whatever it is.
There's so many things that are going through my mind because I'm going to just throw some random scenarios.
Okay.
We are programmed that we have an afternoon slump and that we reach for chocolate and sugar in the afternoon.
Yeah, social conditioning.
It is a social conditioning. And really, there's no need for that. Like, you'd probably be more energized if you have a glass of water instead of having a sugar slump. How does someone break through that?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. So I lost my weight on a low-fat, low-calorie diet. I mean, it was the conventional wisdom of the time, but it left me tired, hungry, and really cranky most of the time. And 2 years in, I was still struggling to maintain my weight. And I thought, there's got to be something better than this. So I did some research and found what I call my unique nutrition blueprint. And once I started following that, I no longer had the afternoon slump because I figured out what was affecting my body in that way. And I just simply was not hungry in the afternoon. I wasn't cranky. And I was no longer tired when I was eating the foods that were good for my body. And I actually give this to my clients now because it was such a revelation to me that I want them to have that so they can follow it or not. That's not my deal. But if you know what works for your body and you do that, it makes so many things better. But you do have to be aware, you're absolutely right, of, okay, I'm reaching for that chocolate bar because society tells me that's what I should want. But that's a polar opposite to what I actually need in this moment. And you do have to retrain yourself to not just go on autopilot. Because on autopilot, I'd be reaching for all kinds of things, but they're not good for me anymore. They don't make me feel good. It's not that I can't have them. I don't want that.
So powerful. And you know that, I know for me, I have an autoimmune condition called alkalizing spondylitis. So I know with me, if I'm eating foods, I know the foods that are going to cause me pain and discomfort and give me joint pain. And it's really interesting for me when I'm following a ketogenic diet and when I'm in ketosis, I actually don't have my pain is basically gone and I feel energetic. And I know you're the same. When you're in a ketogenic state, you feel good. So even though that's probably not what my nutritional blueprint is. But
It
that's when,
may well be.
yeah, well, that's when we feel optimum, is when we're following a ketogenic program and we've reduced wheat and things that cause inflammation.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I followed an anti-inflammatory diet that was eliminating wheat, but it still had carbohydrates, and I still had the pain. It wasn't until I was in ketosis that the pain was gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And like if you notice that when you're on that, you're feeling so good, you didn't actually need to go for the chocolate. You
That's
didn't
right.
have that craving, right?
Yeah, because you got so much energy. So why do diets fail, Renee?
We stop doing them. We learn nothing from them and we stop doing them. And we go back to the way we were eating that got us to this point in the beginning. So here's the thing. Diets are indicative for us. They tell us what works. Now, you can go with the low calorie. That works all the time. If you can maintain the low calorie, you will get there. I am living proof of that. But tired, hungry, cranky. Not good for Mr. Jones. So if I had not learned that, then I would have continued to do that. But when I went over to something that was completely different to that, I was no longer tired and I wasn't hungry all the time and I certainly wasn't cranky. I learned this food, like you, makes me feel good. This food actually brings my mood up. It was amazing. About 2 months into eating this way, I said something and my husband said, "Who are you and what have you done with my wife?" Because my emotional state was so much better. So I learned that those foods work for me as you did. Do you think I'm ever going to let that go? No. I also learned that when I eat sugar, which I gave up about 8 years ago now, I stopped using sugar and I don't get so hungry anymore. It was amazing. If I have sugar, I'm going to be starving the next morning. It's just how it affects me. When I've had it, I am flying, which is I'm flying until I crash, of course. And that's not good for my body. So we have to learn what works for our bodies and then continue that rather than dabbling in all of the stuff that got us where we didn't want to be.
Yeah, so true. Renee, in Australia, we've got a bit of, and nothing against it because I see the value in certain people having gastric surgeries and all that. And I believe there's a place and definitely no judgment. And when I was 16, I had a gastric bypass because I was 200 kilos. Would I have, in hindsight, would I have done that now? No, because it didn't change my mindset. And I've noticed a lot of people, and so even with the gastric bypass, I only lost so much and then had to change the way I did things in order to lose the rest. I'm wondering, what is your experience? Because I know a lot of people that do it, and even though they can't eat much, they eat the wrong foods. And I think it's sort of like a bit of a band-aid. What would your advice, or what are you seeing down this track? Are you noticing something similar?
When I opened my practice, half of my clients were women who had had the gastric bypass, were 5 years out, and had regained all of their weight because they
That was my
didn't
issue.
address what was driving them to food. I know one lady for whom it worked, but she came to me before she had it, and we worked on the emotional stuff, and then she went and had her surgery. So I think it's a drastic step. I know a lot of people who are frustrated afterwards. They thought it was going to be a magic pill. You can't overeat, which is true, but then there are various ways to kind of get around that. And a lot of them become alcoholics. I mean, it's legal on the diet. You can drink alcohol, but your body is affected by it so much more, sort of like a lot of people who do keto. They can't drink as much as they could before because their body's affected differently by it. So know the risks. It can work. But if you don't sort out what's driving you to food for comfort or stress relief, you're going to be stuck. You've got to address that in order for any plan you use. Ozempic, all those semaglutide things, it's the same issue. If you don't address what's driving the behavior, it's never going to work for you.
Yeah, and I agree with that because Like I put on a lot of the weight back on, and it wasn't until I made a decision. Now, this was pre-autoimmune, but then I had lost all the weight. But again, I was following diets, so I was constantly yo-yoing, not knowing the emotional effect. Renee, what if clearing the emotion is too painful for someone and eating just masks that and they're not ready to deal with it, but yet they're in this vicious cycle of yo-yo dieting? How would you grab that person by the hand? Like, what would you do to gently guide them through it?
Get them to trust me. Yes, it's going to be painful to do this, but it's sort of like you have a broken arm. You can live for the rest of your life with your arm broken, and it will sort of heal, and it may be sort of not straight, and you may not be able to have full use of that arm. But if we set it, if we do all the things that you need to do for it to be healed back to kind of what it was before, in 6 weeks, 12 weeks, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to be back to your life. Emotional stuff can be incredibly painful, and it can take some time to walk through it, but you don't have to do all of it today. We can do little bits of it, and you can feel better. And then there comes a point where it's like, why am I dragging this baggage with me now? I don't need this. You get stronger. You're not going to be dealing with that really hard stuff at the same place that you're dealing with things now. You're going to be stronger. You're going to feel better, but it may take a little time. But we can take as long as you need.
That's amazing.
I think that's such a point because, when people go on diets, they want the results yesterday. And they don't see it as a journey, they see it as a sprint, and maybe that's why they're failing as well.
And
Yes.
Renee, the epidemic of self-worth, and how does it relate to emotional eating?
Talk about a pandemic. Low self-worth is just everywhere. And of course, if you don't see your own value, anything that helps is good. So I eat to feel better for this moment in time. Now, I recognize I may not feel this great when I get on the scale or when my trousers are too tight, but right now I'll take it. So if we can build our value of ourselves, our worth, what we see as our worth, it just makes so many things better. And that was a lot of my stuff. I was trying to make myself feel better in all the wrong ways. But over time, working with my coach, and I stayed with her for a long time because I thought, let's do this. And the truth is, it's a lifelong pursuit because you find other things. Okay, you need to deal with that. I just need to deal with that. I don't need to drag that with me anymore. In the end, as my husband said, who are you and what have you done with my wife? And he was happy about that.
Awesome. The name of your business is Pack Your Own Bag. And that one statement is such a metaphor in itself. Do you want to tell us what that metaphor of your business name means to you and to others?
Sure. So I believe our emotional baggage gets packed for us, just like when you're a child and your mother packs your suitcase because we'd never get all of our stuff, right? So at some point in time, we've got to unpack the stuff we no longer need or want to make room to pack for the journey we want to be on. We've got to pack our own bag to be able to reach our goals in life.
I love that. And it's very rewriting your own story and taking the page. Yeah, it's great. What's really eating you? Tell us the journey of writing that book and what someone who reads it can expect from it.
There are a lot of stories in it from my life because that's all I had to work with at the time. But I addressed 10 different issues. And at the end of each chapter, there are some questions for your consideration because I thought not everybody can afford a coach. But if they actually put their time and effort into this, it can help them by answering the questions. It can help them move forward and potentially do it for them.
It sounds very much like a kind of journal that you would be able to reflect on what's going on, like with those questions that you put in there, and be able to have their own process, having a personal coach, so to speak.
Yeah. If you can take what information I give you and then utilize it, you can heal your own heart, which is the journey, isn't it?
Very true. Renee, on a practical level, someone comes to you, they have young kids in the house, they have snacks everywhere, they have a partner who loves to snack, and they're like, I can't deal with this, and life is crazy. How would you help someone through navigating their life as well as making a space that's safe for them to follow their body's natural way or what their body's rhythms are?
It is so much easier if we lived in a bubble and we didn't have temptation around us. Absolutely true. Doesn't happen for most of us, but we can do things. My mother-in-law sent my husband home once with this jar of salted roasted nuts from one of the big stores. Like, it was a huge jar. And I said, oh, no. That's not staying in the kitchen. Take it up to your office. Well, he was going away on another trip and he brought it down and put it in the pantry. And I was like, what are you trying to do to me? So I put it in his sock drawer because I wasn't going to be in his sock drawer. Out of sight, out of mind is sometimes very useful. So either you keep it out of your sight, or if you're a short little woman like me, you put foods that you eat at your eye level in the pantry and in the refrigerator. And I buy myself pretty stuff because we eat first with our eyes, right? So put it at your eye level so that that's the first thing you see when you open the door. I put his stuff above my eye level and in an opaque container if it's a real temptation, because then I can't see it. So that's one thing you can do. You can also have your own cupboard. Their stuff is elsewhere. Your stuff is in this one cupboard. And you stay out of their cupboard. Because if you eat their stuff, you're stealing stuff. We don't want to do that, right? So you make sure you have a space that is where you go that will work for you. And sometimes it's important to talk with your family and say, look, I'm struggling with this. Will you help me by doing this, 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 and this? I also have a rule. After dinner, kitchen's closed. I can go in there for water, and that's it. There is no eating in front of the telly, because when we're doing something else and eating, where's our attention? But on whatever else. Yeah. And I have a celery test. If I'm not going to be paying attention, I'm going to eat celery. It crunches. I won't notice. And there are a lot fewer calories in celery. And if you don't want celery, you're not hungry. Go find something else to do. And if you're bored watching telly, really? Why are you watching telly?
Yeah, makes sense.
I think you hit it at the beginning when you said a lot of these things are actually unconscious. It's bringing the unconscious to our conscious awareness so that we can break those cycles.
It definitely shows that you can catch yourself in the act, and when you can do that, you can actually change that because you become conscious of what you're doing. And when you can have that choice, you're given the option to say, yeah, okay, now I have to take responsibility if I'm making the choices. And sometimes don't. So we just have to make the choice to do something more healthy.
Yes. I have a craving buster, if that would be helpful. If there is a food that you just have to have, and we all have those on occasion, right? And what we often do is we sneak it. We eat it over the trash can or over the sink so that the evidence falls where no one's going to see it. So rather than do that, if there's something you just really have to have, fine, have it. But there are some caveats for this. I want you to put it on a plate or in a pretty glass, whatever works for you. I want you to sit down at your table. I want there to be a tablecloth or a placemat. Use cutlery. Maybe even put out a candle, because I want you to enjoy this food, whatever it is. Eat it slowly, taste it, squeeze all the flavor out of every bite. Give that food the same honor that you are giving your craving. Because if we take the time to enjoy it, we won't need more. I remember being at my grandmother's house. She made great pies. And I would have a piece and I would eat it so fast, I wouldn't really taste it. And then I'd need another piece, right? To enjoy it. if I just enjoyed the first one, taken all the flavor out of it, I would have got what I was looking for in that pie, and I wouldn't need more to do it.
Really mindfulness into
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I know you do that activity with a raisin, and you get people to be mindful when they're eating one raisin, and that was just
did that with a fun size marshmallow.
yeah. Because I'm like, I ain't savoring a raisin. That's
I
not
just
fun.
put them into tiny little bits and give it more into the time.
Oh,
right.
you know what else that's good for, though? We have all of these foods that we've always gone to, yet we haven't tasted them in years. If I sat down when I was trying to give up sugar, I sat down with my favorite candy bar. And it was like my method of giving up sugar was I only have sugar on Sundays. And I managed it. But on this one particular Sunday, it was right after Easter. And I had my favorite candy bar in a very small package. And I thought, okay, I'm going to taste this. Actually taste it this time. And I cut it up into little small pieces. I like you. You sound like me. And I put a piece in my mouth. And I'd bought a bag for myself and a bag for my husband, right? And I thought, this is okay. And I took another bite. And I thought, it's not like I remember it. And I gave my bag to my husband, and I've never had another one since. It wasn't what I remembered. And so often we are tasting memories, not the actual food.
Wow.
I mean, think about every holiday meal. Is it not a collection of memories for that season? And once you marry and you go to a family where they don't make some of it the same way as your family did, do you enjoy it as much? No, it doesn't fit the memory.
So, what do we do to create new memories?
Yeah. Well, and taste your food. See if you still like it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're coming up on a holiday in the States where I'm going to my husband's family, and I know it's not going to be the same. It never is, but it's different, and that can be good too. Or for me, it means I won't overeat. Take your wins where you find them, right?
Yeah. I'm learning so much. So, obviously, if we debunk our triggers, debunk our emotional eating, and just listen to our bodies, find out what our blueprint for our bodies are, there's actually no pressure in this. You don't feel that condemnation of a diet. You don't feel that pressure of, I need to count these many points or I need to do this or do that, because you're actually just listening and going with what your body wants.
Which can be hard for emotional eaters.
Yeah.
I mean, intuitive eating is a wonderful thing if you can do it. That takes a lot of healing. So I still follow my plan, and periodically I track because we get creep. Portion size is not always measured, is it? Except by our eyes. So there are times when I do the weighing and measuring because it is good for my body to do so. No one's making me do it. It's not pressurizing. It's not shaming. It's like we do our budget sometimes. Sometimes we have to say, okay, we've got to cut back here because this has got more expensive. So I've got to manage my account to fit my life. Well, I have to manage my food account to maintain this body. I've still got the same body. I'm a small woman. I can only burn so many calories per day. So if I suddenly increase my calories, my body's going to increase as well. It's just the way it works. So it's not about shame. It's about doing what is good for this particular body.
Honoring your body.
Honoring my body. Yeah.
We always ask the question towards the end, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in this journey? What's the first step they could do?
It helps if you know what works for your body. But for an emotional eater, I would say it's not hard to overcome emotional eating, but you do have to get the hang of it. And hang is an acronym. So to do that, first ask yourself, am I hungry? H. And if you are, you may need something to eat. But if you're not, then A, what is the attraction to food in that moment? What are you looking for? Or what's driving you to look for something? And what is it that you actually need? Because you may need a hug, or you may need to walk around the building, or pet the dog who's scratching at the door, by the way. And then G, go. go get that, because that will soothe you more than food ever possibly could. You just got to get the hang of it.
Oh, right. So one of the things that, like, it sounds like you've had quite a lot of help going through this. And what would you say, how important would mentors be for you in this journey?
Oh, never would have done it without it. And the largest portion of the population actually needs some help to do this, because I will do anything if I told you I would do it, or for you. But to do it for myself, I need external accountability to get things done for me. So without my coach, without my supportive husband, I never would have made it. I need someone to hold me accountable. And that's how I have to set up anything that I want to do for myself. So for example, I walk the dog every morning. I do it for him, basically, because he's a better puppy when he's had a good walk. But I certainly get the benefit, don't I?
Yeah.
So as long as we set up things so that it looks like we're doing it for external accountability, we can get it done. So a mentor, an accountability partner, a support person, it becomes very important to get things done for yourself.
It almost sounds like we have to trick our brain into thinking we're doing this for someone else rather than ourselves. Because a lot of
Sometimes, or if we know someone's going to check, we tend to do things better, right? So a coach or a mentor, they check on us to check our progress, right? And to be supportive and all those sorts of things. So I think it's incredibly important. I never would have done this without it.
This is so good.
So what advice would you give to someone who's looking to rewrite their life story in this area?
Don't delay it. Do it now. Because again, it's like that broken arm. It will make such changes you can't even imagine yet.
And not only the changes in your way, it's the change that when you heal, you're a better person. You feel better and you're not treated by the same emotions. So thank you. Yeah, that's so important.
Good. And Renee, one question for tonight is, if you were to go back and rewrite your life story now, what would that look like?
A lot more like now than the first 50 years. The last 10, 11 have been so different and so wonderful. There's just not a lot of that noise in the back of my mind affecting what I do. It just makes everything easier once your heart heals.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Renee, thank you so much for being on our show today. I've learned so much, and I've learned so much about filling an emotional void of a memory. Like, I had never heard that with food that reminds us or connects us to that person. And that's something, I run death cafes. Charlene and I run death cafes where we talk about death and dying, grief and loss, and normalizing that conversation. And it's really funny. We do it over tea, coffee, and cake.
But in that moment, it may be the best thing you can do for them.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. Wow, like a week innately perpetuating something, but thank you. And it's actually about taking your own responsibility. And when the food's there, you don't actually have to have that. Setting your own boundaries.
Wow, that's amazing.
Renee, thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to know more about Renee, about her book, all of those details are going to be in the show notes and also on our website, www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au. And you'll have links directly to Renee's book and also her website. Renee, once again, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. I just love how that episode took a very different tangent from our initial, like, we've just went straight into the meat.
Yeah.
Sort of talking about food. But I just love, one, Renee talked about your unique nutrition blueprint. And I think that's really important. I think we're probably testaments to that when we feel better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what foods we're eating to make us feel better as well.
And it looks like it's so like a trial, like in a process of elimination is finding out what works for us, what doesn't work for us, noticing those things, like the effect that has on our body and how we feel.
And I think if anything, one key takeaway,
Yeah.
face your stuff.
And
Don't stuff your face. I thought that was so good. You know, if that's your mantra, face your stuff and don't stuff your face.
Yeah.
I thought that's really good as well. So that was really good. And then she talked about the hang method. Am I hungry? What am I attracting? What do I need?
Yes.
And let it go.
Yes, go do it.
And go and get that thing that you actually need and not what the food can give you instead.
Yes.
Also that emotional connection to food and people, you know, how she was trying to find comfort in the peanut butter because the peanut butter reminded her of her grandmother.
And tasting the memories, like that key phrase is just powerful, right? Like we don't taste the food often, we taste the memories and we think about the memories rather than the actual food itself.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.